Hey everyone, I just want to make a video for everyone to see because we're at, it's December 2nd today, which means you're about halfway through this program. So, you started in October, so you've had 2 full months, and then you kind of, moving forward, we have about half a month in December and then half a month in February, and of course all of January. So in terms of actual programming with us, you're halfway through, which is maybe a bit intimidating, but you're only really 2/5 of the way through in terms of the actual time because there's just a bit of a block in December where we're off for the holidays. But otherwise, I just want to have a little video here to kind of just get you up to speed with just, I guess, like some things to think about. I don't want to intimidate anybody, and I don't want to, just pile more work on your heads. But I guess I just want to have a check-in at this point to see like where everyone is at in terms of the work, and also just where, I guess, what is a good point to be at. And part of this really depends on what portfolios you're actually applying to. If you're just applying to the animation workshop or just applying to Sheridan, then you have those specific guidelines and you can track exactly how far you are through that process. But sometimes it is even still very difficult to see where you're actually at in that whole process. So I guess by the time we're entering into December, I think it would be great if most of the pieces, maybe not your personal works. I know I always try to emphasize people to do personal works in advance. It rarely happens, maybe some of them, but once you have those requirements, it's very easy to just spend all of your time working on those required pieces because they're so concrete. They give you exactly the description of what to do for each one. So, the tendency is to start those and do those first. This is the first year, well, ever actually, for Sheridan at least, where the personal work has been increased such a huge amount that they're clearly wanting to see more personality and development in your personal work than the main parts of the portfolio, which is pretty wild. So yeah, I guess just always have that in the back of your mind. Always remember that personal work, like once you have your list of what personal works you want to do, you kind of need to start treating that as if it's the required work in terms of the work ethic that you put towards it. So yeah, anyways, I didn't even mean to start talking about that right away, but I guess in terms of like your process in this whole program and all of your different portfolio pieces, it would be good if everything was lightly started, and then maybe 3 to 4 pieces are like maybe halfway, maybe. I know that might be a big maybe. I know a lot of you, when I asked about layouts the other day, almost no one had actually started them, which is it's not bad as long as you're developing some of the other works that you need to do, but definitely, like, you don't want to leave the things that you're most intimidated about. That is another tendency, not just for portfolios, just across life generally, is that you'll avoid doing the things that require you to do a little bit of prep work or like to figure something out in advance before you kind of get started and get to like actually be creative. There's always the technical side of things, and then there's the creative side of things, and we always want to get to that creative side, but you can't short circuit, or not short circuit, you don't want to hastily rush through the technical part. You do need to set it up well. And so I guess for the perspective layouts, like, to have thumbnailed a bunch, give a bunch of little sketches, and then maybe you're determined, okay, these are the two I'm going to go with for the interior and the exterior. I'm going to start developing those a bit. Even if you're at that point where you're like, I'm going to develop those a bit, that's pretty good. That's a good start. For the character rotation, you want to have probably a good sense of your general character shape, a bit about their personality, a little bit about the story and how they're going to like fit into your portfolio, and just like the vibe that they'll communicate to the portfolio reviewers. And it doesn't hurt to think like, how can I make this character stand out? Or similar to that question is, how do I make this character feel like they belong in an animated production? They're not just, another sort of warrior character or cute witch character. there's certain characters that I see quite a bit, and especially like sort of samurai warriors are very, very hard to, I guess, feel like yours is unique. Obviously you can do it. The rules of design allow for you to pick a common trope like that and to make it anew once again, but then you need to do it in creative ways. The hair, the clothing, how you make the shapes of the character stand out and not just be like, oh, it's just another one of those characters. You really don't want to land in that area of just like, oh, another one of those. So thinking about those things is kind of helpful because you do have enough time to pivot or change your character at this point in time. You're going to get so much faster at the character rotation. I've told this to many of you, but you know, the character rotation, it's kind of a lot of applied perspective without really realizing that you're using perspective a lot, but to have a sense of where things are as they rotate around a pivot point in a camera and a lens that's looking at them, and just tracking the size of different things, which is why it's nice to have a character that's somewhat simple in shapes, or at least the constructive forms underneath their exterior sort of silhouette shapes, like, you know, clothing like this. The shape itself is fairly straightforward so that, you know, it's easy to track as you're rotating it. It's easy to be like, okay, this is how big that joint is. This is how big the wrist joint is. You know, you can always troubleshoot that and figure it out. Okay. Then there's the life drawing. The nice thing about life drawing is we're just consistently doing it, and hopefully you are too. You're kind of moving through your life drawing at a steady pace. So really, just keep doing it. Practice anatomy a little bit in between the sessions. That would be amazing. But ultimately, with life drawing, you just need to keep going, keep showing up, and if not live, then after the fact, of course, you can, you know, asynchronously do those classes. Submit work every week to the group feedback sessions. It's obvious, but anyone in version 2 and version 3. I think you're all doing this for the most part, but there's some folks that I haven't seen their work submitted for a while, so I just want to kind of lightly remind those folks that, you know, those are your group feedback sessions. Please use them. It's nice to have such a wide variety of eyes on your work too. Okay, then there's the storyboard short animation. These are two ones that a lot of people push off because both of them are a bit intimidating because they both involve, for most, new skills, right? A lot of you haven't animated, or you haven't made a story. You might have made a comic or like some kind of sequential story, but not in such an organized format as the sort of storyboard with a consistent sort of nice widescreen, you know, screen size, and with the consideration of the edits between the scenes and your character direction and motion and things like that. That's probably all new. So I guess just really keep in mind that you want to get started on that soon. For the storyboard, do like 4 panels of your storyboard first, and then make the longer storyboard, the 12 panels. Yeah, it's so much easier to approach it that way. That way you can try it a bunch of different times. You can thumbnail one story or multiple stories a whole bunch of times, and then gradually you're gonna fill in that story between. With a short animation, make the scene interesting. Make the motion interesting. You can exaggerate the emotion. The little hard drive can even have a little bit of a sense of like a personality. You can absolutely do that. You can make them feel depressed or sad or excited. You know, even though it's just an object, that is part of the challenge. And from Drew's lecture, you can remember that we talked about timing and spacing and how much you can do with that. That was even just like opening the lid on that subject. Really, there's so much you can do with your timing and spacing of your objects between frames to speed them up, slow them down. You don't want them to be consistent. You might have certain things moving at different times, a delayed action of that little USB bit. So yeah, even just planning that, whenever I plan out an animation like that, I usually just draw it out in my sketchbook. So for any of the feedback sessions, you can even just draw out what you're thinking of doing and then submit that for our instructors so that they can give you some feedback on that. And then the personal work, that is the last section that I haven't mentioned yet. And yeah, like really lean deeply into the things that excite you the most. Obviously there's your sketchbook, which you need to do, and traditionally, I would say, I think it's pretty much confirmed that is a good idea. But on top of the sketchbook, really start to plan out those personal works and what you're going to be doing for those personal works, because things like the comic that still count as one piece even though it's multiple pages might take a little while to do. I have one student that's, she's been working on her comic, and I've seen it about 3 or 4 weeks now, and she keeps developing and developing and developing. So it does take gradual building. One little tip that I'll toss your way is, if you're just stuck generally, or you're just intimidated and you don't know what to do, ask yourself what the more professional version of yourself would do in your scenario. I actually use this a lot whenever I'm having a moment where I'm just like, oh, I can't get through this project, or I don't want to, or I'm bored or whatever. I'm like, okay, something isn't working. And we always think that we know what that thing is that's not working, but we don't always know. Sometimes you need to ask yourself. It's almost like a little role-playing game or something, like, okay, what would the more professional version of myself do if they were in this scenario? And even just asking yourself that question can actually be super helpful. So give it a shot. And just like write out a list, like, okay, I need to get on top of my schedule. I mentioned early on that you really need to book time with yourself, almost like you have your work hours for your portfolio, in the same way that your employer gives you your work hours if you're working part-time or something. You should also book in your hours for work on your portfolio. That would be a great thing to do, to pick away at things. And that way it's like this sacred time that you don't let anything touch. You just like always like, okay, it doesn't matter necessarily what thing I'm working on, but I'm going to work on something. I was also going to say that sometimes you might feel like you do your little work session and you feel like you haven't progressed at all in that session, and that is totally natural. You're going to hit these days that are just like your bad drawing days, and you just don't know how to get out of it. Sometimes you just need to step away. I know it's so hard. I'm one of the people that just beat my head against the wall until I figure it out. And there's something to be said for that too. I find with painting, I can't let a painting go. I have to kind of like just work through the horribleness of it, and then still I might hate it at the end, but I need to get to the end. I need to like see it through. But sometimes you need to step away. I find especially with technology stuff, and when I'm having like, I don't know, when my Wacom driver is like bad or faulty or not working in some way, I just need to step away. I hate technology when it's just not working. You just don't want to have to think about it ever. You just want it to work. But sometimes stuff comes up and it drives me absolutely crazy. And yeah, you just need to, have specific time for that kind of troubleshooting. But yeah, booking time with yourself. Breathe. At this point in this video, please take a huge deep breath, okay? Just okay, I'm gonna get through this. And whenever you're stuck, please do this. It's so cheesy, I know, but just like huge deep breath, multiple deep breaths, and then just, I'm gonna get through this. And also, you need to take the edge off a little bit. It might not be this year. This might not be the year that you get in, but that's okay, right? This is one step in your process of getting to where you want to go in your career or vocation, or however you want to see it. It doesn't have to be this year. You can do it next year. I think it's usually around late December actually that a lot of people start to decide, okay, I'm not going to do it this year, or I'm going to apply, but I know I'm not going to get in, and I just want to get my marks. That's only the case for Sheridan. They're the only school that gives you a numerical grade, but still, it's good to have done it. Even if you don't get a grade, you just get an acceptance or denial. It's still good to do it, just to have done it fully and to have handed something in. Something is better than nothing. It's a good stepping stone for you, and sometimes as an artist, you just need to get to that milestone, even though you're like, wow, that's so bad. Remember that if this is your first portfolio, this is like the worst portfolio you're ever going to make in your life. So don't worry too much. You, as I said, you really need to take the edge off. You don't have to, this doesn't have to be the end all be all. I know that it always does, but just as an experienced artist, you're always going to feel that. You're always going to feel like when a new big thing comes up and you have an opportunity, you're like, this has to be the most amazing thing ever. I'm feeling like that right now with my project that I've been showing you a little bit throughout this semester together. I'm nearing the end of it. In fact, by the end of December, I hope to have at least the first draft done. And I'm feeling that, all those feelings you feel towards the end of a project where you're just like, oh, I just want this to be over. you know, but I'm determined, especially since I've left the best and most epic scene till the end. I'm like, okay, I have to do a good job of this. Even if I'm going to change it later or something, I need to do everything I can to make this awesome right now. And again, like maybe in your next year portfolio, you'll use some of your work from this one, or remodel it, or redo it, or maybe you just do it totally from scratch. But it's not, the hard work is never a waste. It's never a waste. Everything worth doing is hard work. Okay, so if some of the work you're doing doesn't end up even in your portfolio this year, that's fine. You needed to do that to get that out of the way before you could do the work that you really knew. Just a short story about that. I have my children's book that I made. There's one illustration that I was like really excited about, and I'm like, this is going to be the best illustration of the book. And the first time I did it, I jumped right into gouache and on paper, and totally bombed. It just was so bad, and I couldn't believe it. And the color was all over the place, the values all over the place. And then I felt so depressed. And then I redid that one, and because I had gotten the bad one out of the way, it was like my mind was so clear, and I could just move straight towards it. And like I knew exactly what I needed to do. My body just knew. And that was my favorite illustration of the book, and also the shortest illustration. It took the least amount of time because I had done that horrible one first and got that out of the way. So sometimes you just need to do that, okay? And don't feel bad about that either. I know a lot of you are already feeling little elements of burnout. That's also totally natural. Try to even it out a little bit. It's only December, so it's a little too early to be feeling burnt out. You've got lots of time still, but also that the year buffer between 2025 and 2026 also is this like artificial sort of sense of time. It's not as much time as you think. Again, not to intimidate you, but also like you have a couple months. You can do, and you're gonna feel the pressure of crunch time. And no matter what, even if you try to pace yourself, you're still gonna feel the pressure of crunch time. It happens to everybody. And you're going to get so much done, and you're going to learn so much if you just keep working really, really hard. Okay. So, but also over the holidays, like take breaks and do other things, read, go for walks, be out in nature. You need to take breaks from this. You can't just kind of draw all the time. You can draw almost all the time and probably be way better off for it. Okay. So, anyway, I just wanted to make this little video to just check in and kind of remind everyone of certain like things that probably all of you are experiencing. I know a lot of you are feeling like, I'm just not ready for this. I don't have the skills. I'm not there yet. And I know it's hard, but for me, I always just try to not think about where you're at. Remember that like as artists, we are our worst judges of our own work. We do not have an objective lens about how our art is versus others, and really, you mostly just you just want to compare with your past self right now. I mean, look at other portfolios too, but not to the point that it's going to intimidate you, which it really easily can. Or if you follow lots of artists on Instagram or whatever, like you'll see lots of stuff that will intimidate you. I feel intimidated like daily from that, but also it gives me a lot of creative fuel and ideas for what I want to do when I have that time to do my own work. So use it only so much as it's helpful and healthy for you. But if it starts to feel like this unhealthy relationship of comparison, that's when you need to put it away and just focus on your own work. I'm a big fan of workspaces that don't have a lot of technology, which is ironic because probably pretty much everyone's working digitally, but if you ever can get away from it, because any device is so distracting, or turn on the do not disturb mode or airplane mode or whatever, unless you need to gather references, of course, but just try to focus. I know it's so hard to focus today, but just for the next few months, your future self will be very thankful if you can turn off some of that stuff, get away from it, even unplug entirely. That's one thing that I've always been concerned about with this program, is just the amount of time that everyone's obviously looking at a screen, looking at lectures, doing light drawing, etc. It is a long time. So anyway, I don't want to say too much more. I don't want to intimidate you even further. But anyways, I just want to especially those deep breaths that we did earlier, if you did them. Keep doing that. Keep breathing deeply, taking breaks, saying it's going to be okay, and you're going to get through this at some point, and you're going to be so proud of yourself when you're on the other side of this. But for now, just, focus on working hard and getting things done. All right? Okay, I hope that helps a little bit, folks. I'll probably see you before the holiday season, but if not, have a wonderful holidays, and we'll see you in the new year. Okay? All right. Take care, folks.